She arrived in silk dresses and soft dreams, expecting tea by the fireplace and a polite country gentleman. But the moment winter closed in, she realized, this farm didn't need a wife, it needed a survivor. And the man she married wasn't gentle at all. The arrival that changed everything. The wind hit Clara Jennings the moment she stepped off the rattling carriage. It wasn't the kind of wind she had known in Boston, where cold came politely, wrapped in city lights and chimney smoke. No, this wind was sharp, honest. It cut through her coat like it had something to prove. Ahead of her stretched Blackridge Farm. Endless fields of frozen earth. Dark pine forests swaying like silent watchers. And at the center of it all, a farmhouse that looked more like a fortress than a home. Clara adjusted her gloves, trying to ignore the uneasy knot forming in her stomach. "This is it," she whispered. The marriage arrangement had been simple. Almost too simple. A widowed farmer in need of a wife. A city woman needing security after her father's debts swallowed their fortune. Letters had been exchanged. Formal, polite, careful. He had described himself as a respectable gentleman farmer. Quiet, hardworking, in need of companionship. Not once had he mentioned the way the land itself felt alive. The carriage driver called out, "This is as far as I go, ma'am." Clara hesitated. "The storm, coming tonight," he said flatly. "Best you make peace with where you are." And just like that, he left her alone. The wheels disappeared down the muddy road, and silence swallowed everything. That's when she saw him. A man standing near the barn. Tall, still, watching her like he already knew she would struggle. He didn't move to greet her. Didn't smile. Didn't even pretend to be welcoming. Just observed. Clara lifted her chin and walked toward him anyway. "You must be Mr. Harlan Reed," she said politely. A pause. Then his voice, low, roughened by years of cold air and harder work. "I am." That was all. No handshake at first. No courtesy. Just silence stretching between them like a warning. Clara forced a nervous smile. "I'm Clara Jennings. I believe we wrote to each other." "I remember," he said. Still nothing else. She tried again. "Your letters made the farm sound manageable," he interrupted. Clara blinked. Yes. A faint exhale left him. Almost like a laugh that never fully formed. "That depends on the season," Harlan said. Before she could respond, a sudden gust of wind slammed through the yard. The barn creaked. Somewhere inside, a horse stomped anxiously. Harlan finally turned. "You picked the wrong week to arrive," he said. Clara stiffened slightly. "I wasn't given a choice of week." A flicker of something crossed his face. Acknowledgement, maybe. Or warning. Then he nodded toward the house. "Come inside before the storm changes its mind." Inside Blackridge Farmhouse. The moment Clara stepped through the door, she felt it. Heat. But not comfort. It was the kind of heat that fought against something much stronger outside. Like the house was surviving, not thriving. The wooden floors creaked under her boots. The walls were lined with tools, maps, hunting rifles, things that didn't belong in a gentleman's home. Clara slowly removed her gloves. "This is rustic," she said carefully. Harlan shut the door behind her. "It's functional." She nodded, trying to stay composed. "And your staff?" "I don't have any." That caught her off guard. "None. Not in winter." Clara glanced around again. "So, you run all of this alone?" Harlan finally looked at her directly. And for the first time, she understood something important. This man wasn't lonely. He was prepared. "For winter," he said quietly, "you don't rely on people who can't survive it." Clara forced a small laugh. "I believe people are more resilient than that." Harlan didn't argue. He just said, "You haven't seen winter here yet." A heavy silence settled again. Outside, thunder rolled in the distance. The storm was coming faster than expected. Harlan moved toward the fireplace, tossing in fresh logs with practiced precision. "You should rest," he said. Clara hesitated. "And tomorrow?" "Tomorrow," he replied, "you'll learn what you agreed to." She frowned slightly. "That sounds ominous." Harlan finally glanced back at her. "It's honest." The first night warning. Clara was given a small room upstairs. Clean, simple, barely warm. She sat on the edge of the bed, listening to the wind grow louder outside. It wasn't just weather, it felt like something pressing against the walls, testing them. From below, she heard Harlan moving around. Doors locking, firewood stacking, water being filled. He wasn't relaxing. He was preparing. For what exactly? Clara tried to reassure herself. It's just a farm, just winter, just a quiet man who doesn't talk much. But then, a loud crack echoed outside. Clara stood immediately. Another sound followed, metal, like something snapping in the distance. She walked to the window. Through the storm, she saw it. Harlan standing in the yard, alone, in freezing wind, looking toward the tree line like he was expecting something to come out of it. And in that moment, Clara realized something she hadn't understood before. This marriage wasn't about companionship. It was about survival. The rules of Blackridge Farm. The storm didn't stop, it only deepened. By morning, Blackridge Farm looked like it had been swallowed by white silence. Snow covered the fields in thick, endless layers, and the sky hung low, gray and heavy, like it was thinking about staying all winter. Clara Jennings stood at her window, arms wrapped around herself. She hadn't slept. Every sound from outside had felt intentional, like the storm wasn't random at all. A knock came at her door. 2 short taps, controlled, measured. Before she could answer, Harlan Reed stepped in. No apology for entering, no hesitation. He placed a folded wool coat on the chair. "You'll need that," he said. Clara looked at it. "Where am I going?" "Outside." She blinked. "In this weather?" Harlan's expression didn't change. "Yes." Clara gave a small, nervous laugh. "I don't think you understand city women very well." He glanced at her briefly. "I don't think you understand winter at all." That silence again, sharp and final. Then he added, "Put it on." Not a request, a rule. The first lesson. Nothing here is optional. Clara stepped outside 15 minutes later, bundled in the coat. The cold still found ways to bite through it. Harlan was already waiting near the barn. He handed her a small bucket. "What's this?" she asked. "Water." "For what?" "For the animals." Clara frowned. "You don't have staff for that." Harlan started walking. "I told you already. Not in winter." She followed reluctantly, boots sinking into snow. "So you expect me to do farm work?" "I expect you to survive here," he corrected. Clara stopped walking for half a second. "Is there a difference?" Harlan turned his head slightly. "Yes." And then he kept walking. Inside the barn was warmer, but not comfortable. It smelled of hay, leather, and something deeper, animal heat mixed with long nights. A horse shifted in its stall. A goat bleated softly. Clara held the bucket tighter. "I thought you said you were a gentleman farmer," she said carefully. Harlan didn't look at her. "I am. This doesn't feel very gentlemanly." That made him pause. For the first time, something flickered in his expression, something almost like restraint. "A gentleman," he said slowly, "does not mean soft." Clara watched him fill troughs. With practiced strength. "Then what does it mean?" she asked. He looked at her directly now. "It means you take responsibility for what depends on you, even when it breaks your hands." The words landed heavier than she expected. The first rule of Blackridge. As they finished, Harlan led her back outside. The wind had picked up again. Clara pulled her coat tighter. "You haven't told me why I'm really here." Harlan stopped walking. That alone felt significant. Then he said, "Because winter here is not like anywhere else." Clara exhaled. "Everyone says that about their hometown." "This isn't a hometown," he replied. A pause. "It's a line. And everything beyond it doesn't forgive mistakes." Clara frowned. "That sounds dramatic." Harlan turned slightly toward her. "It's not drama. It's experience." He began walking again, and she followed. The house becomes a test. By midday, Clara realized something unsettling. The house wasn't just cold, it was strategic. Every room required adjustment. Firewood wasn't freely used. Water wasn't always warm. Even light from candles was limited. She found Harlan in the kitchen sharpening a blade. "You ration everything," she said. "Yes." "Even warmth?" "Yes." Clara crossed her arms. "Why?" Harlan didn't look up. "Because winter takes more than it gives." She hesitated. "And if we run out?" That made him pause. He finally met her eyes. "Then we don't survive March." The simplicity of it unsettled her more than fear ever could. A warning from the window. That evening, Clara stood near the window again. She was starting to notice things she missed before. The forest line wasn't just trees, it was too still. Too watchful. The wind carried strange patterns, almost like it changed direction too suddenly. And then she saw it again. Harlan outside, standing in the snow, not moving, not reacting, just watching the forest. Clara pressed her hand against the glass. What are you looking at? She whispered, though he couldn't hear her. Behind her, the floor creaked. Harlan was suddenly in the room. You should not stand near that window at night, he said. Clara turned quickly. Why not? He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he walked past her and closed the heavy curtains. Because, he finally said, there are things out there that learn fast. Clara's throat tightened slightly. Things. Harlan looked at her, longer this time. And then, carefully, animals are not the only ones who survive winter here. The first night of real fear. That night, the wind changed. Not stronger, different. It carried sounds that didn't belong to weather. Clara sat up in bed, listening. A distant thud, then silence, then something like dragging across frozen ground. She pulled the blanket tighter. From downstairs, Harlan moved immediately. Fast, alert, not panicked, prepared. Clara opened her door slightly. Harlan, she called softly. No answer. She stepped onto the staircase. The house below was dim, only one lantern burning. And Harlan stood near the door, holding something in his hand. Not a tool, not a farming instrument, a rifle. Clara froze. The silence between them stretched. Then she whispered, "What's happening?" Harlan didn't look back at her. Just said one sentence. "Stay upstairs. Lock your door." Clara's heart beat faster. Is it the storm? A pause. Then, colder than the wind outside. No. And for the first time since arriving at Blackridge Farm, Clara understood she hadn't been brought here to be welcomed. She had been brought here to be prepared. What lives beyond the tree line? Clara didn't move. The instruction still echoed in her mind like a command she couldn't disobey. Stay upstairs. Lock your door. Below her, the house felt different now, no longer just cold wood and quiet winter space. It felt like a boundary. Line between what was safe, and what wasn't. She slowly backed into her room and closed the door. Her hands shook slightly as she turned the lock. Outside, the wind pressed against the farmhouse again, harder this time. Not random, not gentle. It came in waves, like something circling the property. Clara sat on the edge of her bed, listening. And waiting. The silence after the sound. Minutes passed. Then an hour. Nothing. No footsteps. No gunshot. No shouting. Just silence so thick it felt unnatural. Clara stood up carefully and moved toward the window again, but stopped halfway. Harlan's voice echoed in her memory. There are things out there that learn fast. She hesitated, then still looked. The forest line was darker than before. Too dark. Even the snow looked different there, disturbed, uneven, like something had crossed it recently. Then she saw it, a shape, not clear, not fully formed, just movement between the trees. Clara stepped back instantly. Her breath caught. That's not, she whispered. Another movement, closer this time, downstairs. The truth of Harlan Reed. Below, the front door opened. Cold air rushed in. Clara rushed out of her room before she could think better of it. Harlan, she called. She reached the top of the stairs just in time to see him enter. Snow clung to his coat. His shoulders were tense, but he wasn't injured. That alone didn't calm her. It made it worse. He shut the door and immediately locked it, 3 bolts in sequence. Click, click, click. Clara came down slowly. What was that outside? Harlan didn't answer immediately. He placed the rifle near the wall, then removed his gloves with controlled movements. Finally, tracks. Clara frowned. Animal tracks. He looked at her then, really looked. And said, not entirely. A cold feeling settled in her chest. What does that mean? She asked. Harlan walked past her toward the fireplace. It means the forest is not empty this winter. The second rule of Blackridge. Clara followed him into the kitchen, frustration building now over fear. You never explain anything fully, she said. Harlan opened a cabinet, checking supplies. Because explanations don't stop what's coming. That's not an answer. It is the only one that matters here. Clara stepped closer. Then why did you bring me? That made him stop. For the first time, his silence felt heavier than the storm outside. He turned slightly. I didn't bring you here for comfort, he said. Clara's voice lowered. Then why? A long pause. Then he said it. Because winter here does not forgive isolation. Clara frowned. So you needed company? Harlan shook his head slightly. No, I needed someone who would not panic when the house stops feeling like a house. That hit her harder than she expected. She looked around the farmhouse, at the tools, the locks, the reinforced doors. This isn't a home to you, she realized quietly. Harlan didn't deny it, it's a shelter. The thing in the trees. That night, the wind changed again. But this time, Clara noticed something else. The animals in the barn were restless. The horse wouldn't settle. The goat kept pressing itself into corners. Even the smallest sounds made them react. Harlan checked the doors twice. Then again, Clara stood near the kitchen doorway, watching him. "You're expecting something," she said. He didn't look at her. "I'm always expecting something. That's not normal." Harlan finally turned. Nothing about this place is normal after December. A sudden crash came from outside. Both of them froze. Clara stepped back instinctively. "What was that?" she whispered. Harlan was already moving. "Stay inside," he said firmly. But Clara grabbed his sleeve before he could leave. "No," she said, surprising even herself. "Not this time." Harlan looked at her hand, then at her face. Something in his expression shifted, like he was weighing a decision he had already made before she even arrived. Finally, he said, "Then you do exactly what I say." Into the snow. They stepped outside together. The cold hit Clara instantly, sharper than before. The storm had weakened, but the silence was worse. Harlan moved first, boots sinking into fresh snow. Clara followed closely. "What am I looking for?" she asked quietly. Harlan didn't answer. He knelt near the barn entrance. Clara saw it then. Marks in the snow. Deep. Irregular. Not animal hooves. Not human footprints either. Something heavier, dragged. Clara swallowed hard. What made that? Harlan traced the marks with his eyes. Then stood. Something that learned where we are. Clara's breath caught. Learned. Harlan looked toward the tree line. Yes. A long silence. Then he added, "And now it will come back." The truth about Blackridge. They walked back toward the house quickly. Inside, Harlan locked everything again. Faster this time. More urgent. Clara stood near the fireplace, trying to steady her breathing. "You live like this every winter?" she asked. Harlan nodded. "Alone?" "Yes." "Why?" He paused, then said quietly, "Because people don't stay once they understand what winter here really means." Clara looked at him carefully. "And what does it mean?" Harlan met her eyes. "That the cold is not the worst part." A silence followed. Outside, something moved again in the distance. Clara whispered, "Then what is?" Harlan turned toward the door, waiting for it to decide if the house is worth breaking into. The night the house was tested, the silence didn't last. That was the first thing Clara learned that night. Blackridge Farm never stayed quiet for long, only waiting quiet. The kind that made every small sound feel like a warning. She stood near the fireplace, watching Harlan move through the house again. Locking, checking, rechecking. Not once did he slow down. Clara finally spoke. "You think it's coming here?" Harlan didn't look at her. "It already knows where here is." A cold shiver ran through her, though the fire was burning right beside her. "That doesn't make sense," she said. "It's just something in the woods." Harlan finally paused, and looked at her with a calm that felt more frightening than panic. "Nothing survives that forest long enough to become just something." The first impact. It started with a sound. Not loud, but deliberate. A slow scrape against the outer wall of the farmhouse. Clara froze instantly. "Did you hear that?" Harlan nodded once. "Yes." Another scrape followed. Then silence again. Clara stepped closer to him without realizing it. "What is it doing?" Harlan lifted the rifle from the table. "Testing." The word made her stomach tighten. "Testing what?" Before he could answer. Thud. This time, stronger. The front door rattled. Clara stepped back. "Harlan, I know," he said immediately. His voice changed. Not louder. Not panicked. Sharpened. "The house becomes a line of defense." Harlan moved fast now. Not rushed. Trained. He checked the bolts on the door again, then the windows, then the back entry. Clara followed him, her breath uneven. "You can't be serious. Whatever this is, it's outside. We can just wait it out." Harlan stopped suddenly, turned to her, and for the first time, there was frustration in his voice. "It does not leave when ignored." Another thud hit the side of the house. Dust fell from the ceiling. Clara flinched. Harlan stepped closer to her, lowering his voice. "Listen carefully. You stay behind me. You do not open anything. You do not go near the windows." Her throat tightened. "And if it gets in?" Harlan didn't hesitate. "Then you run upstairs and don't look back." That answer wasn't comforting. It was final. The shadow outside. Clara stayed near the stairwell as Harlan moved toward the front room. The lanterns flickered now. The wind outside sounded wrong, like it was circling instead of passing through. Then she saw it, through the gap in the curtain. A shadow, not fully visible, but unmistakably there. Too tall to be an animal. Too still to be human. Clara stepped backward slowly. Harlan, she whispered. He was already there beside her. He followed her gaze, and went silent. That silence was worse than anything before. Because now he wasn't guessing. He was confirming. The first breach attempt. The front door shook again. Harder. The lock held, but barely. Clara covered her mouth instinctively. Harlan raised the rifle, positioning himself between her and the door. "Whatever you do," he said quietly, "do not scream." Clara nodded quickly, but her heart was beating so loudly she wasn't sure she could obey. Another hit, then another. The wood creaked. Clara whispered, "It's going to break it." Harlan's eyes stayed locked on the door. Yes, that single word made her blood run cold. She turned toward him. "And you're not stopping it?" "I am," he said. A pause, then added, "when it shows itself." The moment everything stopped. Then, silence. Instant. Total. Even the wind outside vanished. Clara looked around confused. Why did it stop? Harlan didn't answer. He moved slowly toward the door, every step controlled. Clara grabbed his arm. "Don't go closer." He looked at her hand. Then at her face, and gently, but firmly, removed her grip. "I have waited for this longer than you can understand," he said. Clara shook her head. Waited for what? Harlan didn't answer. Because at that exact moment, a sound came from the other side of the door. Not a hit, not a scratch, a voice, low, broken, almost human. Clara froze completely. What is that?" she whispered. Harlan's expression tightened, and for the first time since she arrived at Blackridge Farm, he looked afraid, not of the thing outside, but of what it meant that it was speaking. The voice that knew her name. The sound came again. Not a knock, not wind, not wood breaking. A voice, low, uneven, almost dragged through ice. Clara. She went completely still. Her mind refused to process it at first. Names didn't belong out there. Names belonged inside houses, in letters, in safe places. Not in the dark beyond a storm-battered farmhouse. Harlan reacted instantly. He stepped closer to the door, rifle raised, but not firing yet. Clara grabbed his arm again, harder this time. "Did you hear that?" Harlan didn't look at her. Yes. Her throat tightened. It said my name. That made him pause. Just for a second. And that second told her everything she needed to know. He wasn't surprised. He was expecting it. The door that shouldn't open. The voice came again, closer this time. Clara Jennings. The way it said her full name made her stomach twist. Like it wasn't recalling it, it was confirming it. Clara stepped backward. No, that's not possible. Nobody out there knows me." Harlan finally spoke, voice low and controlled. "Someone does." Clara turned to him sharply. "What are you talking about?" But before he could answer, the front door shuddered. Not hit, not pushed. Shuddered, like something had placed its hand on it and was listening through it. Clara's breath caught. Harlan shifted his stance. "Go upstairs." Clara shook her head immediately. Not without answers. Harlan's jaw tightened. "This is not the time." Another voice came, closer, more precise. "Clara, he didn't tell you everything." Clara froze again. Slowly, she looked at Harlan. "What? Didn't you tell me?" she whispered. Harlan didn't answer, and that silence was the answer. The first crack in trust. Clara took a step back. "No," she said. "No, you don't get to stay silent now. Something is out there saying my name in the middle of nowhere and you act like this is normal." Harlan finally turned to her. His voice was lower than before. "This is not normal." "Then what is it?" she demanded. A beat passed. Then he said, "It is not the first time it has come." Clara blinked. "What?" Harlan looked toward the door again. "It learns. It returns. And it remembers who stays inside." Clara felt her stomach drop. "That doesn't answer anything." Harlan exhaled slowly, and then said something that made the air feel colder than the storm. "It remembers you because it has seen you before." Clara shook her head immediately. "That's impossible. I've never been here before." Harlan's eyes narrowed slightly. "That's what I thought too." The name beyond the wall. The voice returned again, but this time, it wasn't just calling her. It was speaking to her. "You left something here, Clara." Clara covered her ears instinctively. Stop it. Harlan stepped forward slightly, blocking her view of the door. But the voice continued, and he didn't tell you what happened to the last one. Clara froze. Slowly, she looked at Harlan again. Last one, she whispered. Harlan's expression hardened. No, but it was too late. The word had already landed. The secret of Blackridge Farm. Clara's voice shook. There was someone before me. Silence. Harlan didn't deny it, didn't confirm it either. That was enough. Clara stepped back slowly. You said I was here because you needed a wife. Harlan finally spoke, but carefully. I needed someone who could survive winter. Her eyes widened. That's not an answer. It is the only one that matters, he repeated. Clara's voice rose slightly now. Did she survive? A long pause. Then Harlan said, she lasted longer than most. That wasn't reassurance. That was history. The knock that changed everything. Suddenly, a heavy crack hit the door. Clara screamed softly and stepped back. Harlan moved instantly, raising the rifle fully now. The door shook again, this time harder. Wood splintered slightly near the frame. Clara's breath turned shallow. It's coming in. Harlan's voice was sharp now. Stay behind me. Another hit. Then, stillness. A pause so unnatural it felt staged. And then the voice came one final time. Right outside the door, right at the threshold. Clara Jennings, ask him about the winter before you. Clara turned slowly toward Harlan. Her voice barely audible. What winter? Before me. Harlan didn't answer. Because outside, the door handle began to turn. Slowly, deliberately. The winter he never spoke of. The door handle turned. Slowly. Not like a break-in. Like someone who already belonged inside the house. Clara stepped back instinctively, her back hitting the edge of the staircase. Harlan moved in front of her immediately, rifle aimed at the door, but his finger didn't tighten. Not yet. Outside, the voice didn't speak again. It didn't need to. The silence itself was pressure now, like something waiting to see who would break first. Clara whispered, don't open it. Harlan didn't look at her. I won't. But his voice didn't carry full certainty. That frightened her more than the knocking. The name that shouldn't exist. Then it happened. The voice returned, but different. Not from the door, from the side of the house. Clara, she spun toward the sound. Nothing there. Then, from behind the barn, Clara Jennings, it was circling the farmhouse. Not attacking, surrounding. Clara's breathing turned uneven. How is it everywhere? Harlan's jaw tightened. It's not everywhere. A pause. It's choosing where you listen. That made her freeze. Because suddenly she realized, the voice wasn't just calling her. It was testing her reactions. The moment Harlan breaks his silence. Clara turned sharply. Tell me the truth. Harlan didn't respond. Harlan, she snapped louder. Tell me what is going on. A long pause. Then, finally, he lowered the rifle slightly. And said, there was another winter. Clara went still. I know. You said that. Harlan shook his head once. You don't understand. His voice changed now, less controlled, more distant. The last winter I didn't live alone. Clara felt her stomach drop. Your wife. Harlan didn't correct her. That silence confirmed it. The woman before Clara. Clara swallowed hard. What happened to her? Harlan looked toward the floor for a moment. Like the answer weighed more than he wanted to carry. She arrived like you, he said quietly. From the city. Thought the farm was simple. Thought winter was just weather. Clara listened without interrupting now. Harlan continued. At first, she refused the rules. She laughed at the locks. Said I was paranoid. A faint bitterness entered his voice. Then the first snowstorm came. Clara's hands clenched slightly. And, Harlan hesitated. Then the forest started calling her name. Clara felt a chill crawl up her spine. That's what it does, Harlan added quietly. It studies. It imitates. It learns what people respond to. The night everything changed. Outside, something scraped the barn wall again. Harlan didn't react this time. He kept speaking. She started hearing things at night. Thought it was wind, or guilt, or isolation. Clara whispered, was it? Harlan finally looked at her. No, a beat. She opened the door once. Clara froze completely. Harlan's voice dropped lower. I told her not to. She said she only wanted to see what was outside. The house creaked. The wind pressed hard against the walls. Clara whispered, what did she see? Harlan's answer came slowly. Something that knew her before I ever met her. The truth about Blackridge Farm. Clara shook her head. No, That doesn't make sense. People don't just get known by whatever this is. Harlan stepped closer now, voice firmer. This place is not just land. It's a boundary. Clara frowned through fear. A boundary for what? Harlan looked toward the door again. For things that do not stay dead properly. Silence hit the room like a weight. Outside, the voice returned again. But this time it wasn't calling Clara. It spoke one sentence only. She wasn't the first. Clara turned slowly toward Harlan. Who wasn't the first? Harlan's expression darkened, and for the first time, he answered without hesitation. The winter does not start the same way twice. The knock becomes a memory. The door suddenly slammed so hard the frame shook. Clara stumbled backward. Harlan raised the rifle instantly again, but this time his eyes weren't on the door. They were on the hallway behind Clara. Don't move, he said sharply. Clara froze. Why? Harlan's voice lowered. Because it's already inside the sound. Clara whispered, that doesn't make sense. But then she heard it. Footsteps. Slow. From upstairs. Clara's blood turned cold. I locked my room, she whispered. Harlan didn't look away from the hallway. I know. Another step echoed. Closer now. Clara's breath hitched. Harlan. He finally said the worst possible thing in the calmest voice possible. It doesn't need open doors anymore. Something walks inside the house. The footsteps upstairs stopped. That silence should have been a relief. Instead, it felt like a decision had just been made. Clara stood frozen in the hallway, eyes fixed on the ceiling above her. The wood creaked once, then nothing. Harlan didn't move. He was listening differently now, not to sound, but to patterns. Clara whispered, it's in my room. Harlan's voice was low. No. A pause. Not yet. That single word made her stomach tighten. Not yet meant it was only a matter of time. The house that stops feeling like shelter. The lantern in the hallway flickered. Once. Twice. Then steadied again. Clara realized something strange. Her breath looked thicker in the air, like the temperature had dropped again inside the house. Why is it getting colder? She asked. Harlan finally glanced at her. Because it is close. Clara swallowed. Close to what? Harlan didn't answer immediately. Instead, he moved toward the stairs slowly, rifle raised but not aimed. Then he said, to deciding where to become real. The first wrong sound. From upstairs. A soft sound. Not footsteps this time. A chair moving. Clara recognized it instantly. Her chair. In her locked room. She took a step forward instinctively, but Harlan raised a hand without turning. Don't, he warned. Clara stopped. That's my room. I know. Another sound came. A drawer opening. Slow. Careful. Almost curious. Clara's voice cracked slightly. How is something inside if everything is locked? Harlan finally answered. Locks keep people out. A pause. Not things that only need attention. The truth about what it wants. Clara shook her head. You keep talking like it's alive, like it thinks. Harlan's jaw tightened. It does more than think. A faint thud echoed upstairs again. Clara flinched. Harlan continued, voice controlled but heavier now. It studies people. It learns what they fear. What they remember. What they refuse to believe. Clara whispered, and me. Harlan looked at her for a long moment. You are being introduced to it. That sentence hit harder than fear. It sounded like she wasn't a victim. She was a target of recognition. The door upstairs opens. A sudden creak echoed from above. Clara looked up sharply. No, she whispered. Harlan raised the rifle fully now. The sound was unmistakable. Her bedroom door, unlocking. Clara stepped forward without thinking. Harlan grabbed her wrist firmly. Stop, he said sharply. Clara turned to him, panic rising. That's my room. Harlan's grip tightened. And it is not your room anymore. Clara froze. Because upstairs, the door opened, slowly, deliberately, without force, like it had been invited. What comes downstairs? A step, then another. From the stairs, Clara's breathing became uneven. Harlan, it's coming down. Harlan didn't look away. I know. Clara whispered, shoot it. Harlan's answer was immediate. It's not fully here yet. Clara stared at him in disbelief. What does that even mean? Another step echoed. Closer now. Then another. Harlan spoke quietly, almost like explaining something unavoidable. If I fire too early, I only prove it can be seen. Clara's voice rose slightly. And if you wait too long, Harlan finally said, then it learns what I am. The moment it appears, the first shape appeared at the top of the stairs. Not fully defined, not fully human, Just enough form to understand intention. Clara stepped back instinctively. She started, but stopped, because it looked like her room had shaped it. Familiar outlines, familiar posture, but wrong in every way that mattered. It tilted its head slightly, and spoke, not loudly, not aggressively, softly. Clara. Clara's knees weakened slightly. Harlan raised the rifle fully now, but didn't fire. The thing took one step down, then another, and said, "You let me in." Clara shook her head violently. "No, I didn't." But then she remembered something. The window. The night she looked too long. The night she answered fear with curiosity. And the house with hesitation. Harlan's warning becomes reality. Harlan spoke without taking his eyes off it. "Do not respond to it." Clara whispered, "Why?" "Because it only learns faster when you correct it." The thing stopped, halfway down the stairs. It looked between them, as if deciding who mattered more. Then, it smiled, and said, "He never told you what the winter takes first." Clara turned slowly toward Harlan. "First," she repeated quietly. Harlan's expression hardened, but for the first time, he didn't deny anything. The night the ranch almost broke, the wind screamed through the valley like something alive. A loud crack echoed outside. Jonathan was on his feet instantly. "Stay inside," he ordered, but Evelyn didn't listen. She followed him into the storm anyway, her boots sinking into snow that reached her knees. The barn was shaking, wood groaning under pressure. Roofs collapsing. He shouted. Together, they fought the storm. Hands freezing, breath vanishing into white air. The world reduced to survival and instinct. A beam snapped. Jonathan pushed her out of the way. He took the hit. Evelyn screamed his name as he fell into the snow. For a moment, everything went silent again. Too silent. The truth beneath the ice. Inside the house, firelight flickered across Jonathan's injured shoulder. Evelyn was shaking, not from cold, but fear. "You could have died out there," she whispered. He didn't answer right away. Then, finally, "People like me don't die easy." "That's not an answer." His jaw tightened. For the first time, his mask cracked. "I didn't ask for a wife because I needed help running a farm," he said quietly. "I asked because I needed someone who wouldn't leave when things got ugly." Evelyn froze. Outside, the storm kept raging. Inside, something deeper shifted. "You didn't choose me for love," she said slowly. "I chose you for survival," he admitted. Then softer, "But I didn't expect you to make me feel human again." Silence fell between them. He looked at her like he was afraid of what came next. The winter that changed everything. Winter didn't leave quickly. It stayed, weeks stretching into something timeless. But the ranch didn't break. Neither did they. Evelyn learned how to read the sky, how to ration firewood, how to hear danger in the wind. Jonathan taught her everything he knew, not like a husband teaching a wife, but like a man slowly trusting someone with his life. And somewhere in that frozen silence, something unexpected grew. Not fast, not loud, but real. One evening, as snow melted softly under a rare warm sun, Evelyn stood outside the barn watching the horizon turn gold. Jonathan joined her, hands in his coat pockets. "You survived winter," he said. "I didn't just survive it," she replied. "I lived it." He glanced at her. A long pause. Then, quietly, "Stay for the next one." It wasn't a demand. It wasn't a contract anymore. It was a question without fear. Evelyn looked at the endless land, then back at the man who once needed a wife to survive winter, and ended up needing something else entirely. "I think I already did," she said. And for the first time since the snow came, the ranch felt warm. Please friends spot my channel. Like, share, comment, subscribe for more stories. Thanks for watching.